We now know where Chad Franke was for the year leading up to Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt's arrest. He's now addressed the situation in an interview with People magazine, and Kevin shares that he was in the same boat. Both of them basically were told to leave the family home and not have any contact with their family.
The rules, the boundaries of the separation were completely defined by my former wife Ruby and by Jodi. If I were to seek, even attempt to cross that boundary, that was an evidence that I was being selfish, that I was unsafe, and that likely my marriage would have ended. She insisted that we subject ourselves to pain and discomfort, and pain and discomfort would be what would change us, what would make us stronger.
The Franke's neighbors seem to have been very involved in the situation regarding Ruby Franke and her children for the year leading up to her arrest. They were trying everything to get help from the police, other family members, even Chad Franke. In the interview, Chad told a story about how one of the neighbors saw him biking to work one day. He was only 17 years old and living on his own, so they reached out to him and wanted to purchase him a car. But of course, Jodi Hildebrandt wouldn't allow it.
As I'm sure Chad can share his perspective as well, we were both really indoctrinated that we needed complete isolation in order to heal, and that if we were interacting with anybody that was contrary to the messaging that Jodi, the other men in Connections, and Ruby wanted us to accept and ingest, then we were being selfish.
I was also required to move out of the house and never contact my siblings, never go back home. I was a minor. I was 17, out living on my own, and Jodi, who's my therapist and I trusted and loved, at that point, she wanted me to live a very physical, straining and mental straining life while I was out there. That was her mindset when it came to repentance and changing, is put yourself through as much pain as possible. So, that was a really hard year, physically and emotionally, not being able to have any family for that long and no contact at all.
Chad Franke has done an exclusive interview with People magazine talking about his current relationship with his mother, Ruby Franke, and what he thinks it's going to look like in the future.
I definitely hate the things she did, and I feel like I'm also a very lighthearted person in a sense where I would never wish someone to have a bad life, or what I really hope is that from here she becomes a better person and that she works on that and she truly tries to change.
He says that he has no contact with his mother right now and doesn't know when or if he ever will, but he definitely does not see them having a close-knit relationship in the future.
I have no contact with her right now, and I don't plan to anytime soon. But then again, she's still blood. She's still my mom, and maybe down the road eventually I'll have like a conversation with her and maybe eventually have a relationship where we can just talk. But when it comes to her actually being a mom and then eventually a grandma, I don't think I'll ever have that kind of close relationship again.
Chad says he's okay with where things are right now, that he is happy with his family, and that Ruby Franke is actually not missed at home.
It's hard, of course, but I mean, when I go home, I feel like, no one's missing. I don't really feel like I wish mom was here. I don't really have those feelings really at all. It doesn't feel wrong not having her in my home, and that's okay. So I feel like I'm in a good spot even though she's not here.
I helped clean blood off the walls. This is a statement from Sherry Franke in the new docuseries that's being released on February 27th about her mother, convicted child abuser Ruby Franke. She said she remembers helping Chad after Ruby would physically beat him when he was in trouble. Sherry says she helped Chad clean blood off the walls after he was beat really bad. She said, I did always feel bad when he got in trouble. He'd get a bloody nose and I'd bring him toilet paper and didn't know what else to do. In the series, Chad says viewers never saw what was actually happening behind the scenes. He said there were times when she would blow up off camera. She would spank, whip, take the belt out and whip my butt, pull down my pants and whip me. Sherry Franke has also written a book titled The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom. And in this, she says that Ruby Franke's punishment evolved over the years. She's quoted as saying they turned into grand gestures and prolonged periods of deprivation. Chad and Kevin have been doing interviews to promote the new docuseries, and in an interview with People magazine, Kevin seemingly throws Ruby's Frankie under the bus, saying that's maybe where Ruby's behavior stemmed from in the first place.
The criminal physical stuff happened after Jody came into the picture, and the severe and the strict consequences and outcomes came after Jody came into the picture. Ruby herself, though, was throughout our marriage, she took a very strict stance when it came to parenting.
Yeah.
And I think she learned a lot of that from her own parents and her own family.
In one of the interviews, Chad and Kevin talk about the fact that what they experienced at the hands of Ruby Franke while they were filming 8 Passengers was not uncommon for all family vloggers that they were aware of. Now, this is a loaded statement because Ruby Franke's siblings have all at one point in time in their lives been family vloggers, showcasing their children on their channels. Ruby Franke has 3 sisters and a brother, and her sister Bonnie has been very outspoken about the fact that she does not believe that her family vlog is anything like Ruby Franke's. Bonnie has made a video, in fact, saying just that her family vlogging is completely different from Ruby Franke's and that her children want to be a part of the vlogging process. In the clip I'm about to play you, it definitely sounds like Kevin and Chad are saying that Bonnie's sisters all treat their children the same way off camera.
The things that you see that are concerning in the documentary, such as the sternness, the yelling at the kids to get them to comply, and the filming and those kinds of things, I think a lot of people that aren't familiar with family content creation would look at that and go, that's horrible, that's abusive, and it is abusive. But what I want people to understand is that was not unique to our family. I don't know a single family content creator that did not have interactions like that with their children.
Yeah, and I can testify the same. I mean, we would go on, big YouTube trips, and there would be so many family vloggers there with so many kids and cameras out, and the stuff that my mom did behind the scenes, like yelling or get back in place or say that again, or the sternness, that wasn't just my mom as well. I mean, a lot of vloggers and parents who are putting their kids on camera, they act the exact same.
Kevin Franke has finally addressed the abuse that his children suffered at the hands of his wife, Ruby Franke, and her business partner, the family therapist, Jody Hildebrand. He says that he was unaware of any of the physical abuse his children suffered, and he even addresses the situation that everyone called attention to in 8 Passengers and says that basically that was Jody Hildebrand's fault.
A lot of the physical violence that was described was hidden and kept from me. I didn't even know that those things happened. And I think Ruby was really careful to hide a lot of that from me.
So just a reminder that Kevin Franke was not in the picture when Ruby and Jody were arrested at Jody's home in August of 2023. Kevin had been asked to leave by Jody and Ruby and told that he could not contact his family or Ruby for at least a year if he wanted to work on his marriage.
As far as the things like sleeping on a beanbag, removing Chad from sports teams and things, all of those directives came from Jody, the licensed mental health counselor. I definitely voiced my opposition and concern, and it was always flipped back onto me of saying, well, this is why your children are disobedient. This is why you're having problems with your children, because you just enable them all the time. You're the problem, Kevin.
These clips are from an exclusive interview that Kevin and Chad did with People magazine. They have been doing interviews to promote their new docuseries that's coming out on Hulu called Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke. I think it's going to be extremely telling. I think the family's going to be sharing a lot. Sherry will also be joining them, and there is going to be footage that no one has seen from the 8 Passengers episodes. In this next interview that they did with People magazine, Chad talks about the fact that he does not blame his father for what he ended up doing or not doing, and says that he understands that his father was just trying to do what was best to keep his marriage and family together.
When you work with a licensed therapist who is giving you advice, and you've trusted her for 5 years, and at first it was great advice, and I felt like she did a really good job with me. But, you know, when you build a relationship for 5 years and when it gets to the point where your mom also trusts her more than she trusts her husband. For my dad, I understand that in order to get his family back and to not run into problems with my mom and our therapist, you know, he had to obey her rules and follow each step.